Meow meow. Will you meow for us? Sweet girl, she's all up on it. Honey, are you coming on the pod? Sweet girl. Oh my God. Oh, Minnie, you are so good. You are so good.
Find other great podcasts like this one at podmoth.network.
All right, take two, everybody.
Take two, everybody. Minnie said, not this one.
Yeah, for those who don't know who Minnie is my little orange kitty cat. And the moment we pressed record, she was like, hey, I'm going to be a part of this now. I just sent Sophie a picture. I'm going to put this on the Instagram too. But she started doing this thing with me on Friday before I left for work. I got her this toy basket a long time ago, and then I got a different basket for her toys. So now this is her like chillin' basket. And basically wherever I put it, she will hang out.
I love that. That is amazing. She fits perfectly in this tiny little like fabric basket.
Yeah.
And it's an absolute dream. That's what I want. I want a little kitty sitting next to me on my desk. Like, who doesn't want that?
It's delightful. It's the best way to conduct your business.
Absolutely. Behind me is like the couch that Joe and I have is like a sectional.
Yeah.
And we took one section and put it like under the window as kind of like a reading nook.
Oh, love that. Nice.
But it's fast become the puppy nest.
Oh, damn it.
Yeah. But in the best way possible.
Yeah,
I've become
that's
invested.
Good.
Yeah, and like making it as comfortable as possible for the puppy dogs. They have a little bed on there. They have, I don't know if you can see, they have 1 million pillows and blankets.
I think I can see a bit of it. Ah, yes. I see very fuzzy blankets. That's perfect. I need to make more nooks for Minnie, apparently.
I mean, I am fully on board of I'm team nook all the way. Anywhere you live, you should have a little nook where you can curl up and be like a little hobbit in your home.
Yeah, we love it. There was a chair in one of the houses I lived at during college that was called the cuddle chair because it was like this perfect like sofa love seat sized chair. And it was just a great chair to snuggle up with someone in.
Ooh.
I think I was more snuggling up with people in like a friendship way at that point, but
Ooh.
Still good either way.
Still good either way. Aww.
Anyway, we love coziness.
We love coziness.
Yeah. Is it okay? This is like kind of lame to talk about the weather, but is it like rainy and kind of gray where you are?
Yeah, we're experiencing mugginess.
Yeah, in the middle of summer. I mean, not middle. I guess technically summer's about to begin very soon, but yeah, it's a weird time.
Well, it's just like we used to have this June gloom that would be like June being cold and rainy. And I feel like in the last couple years, a la global warming, we have had weirder and weirder weather going into the summertime period.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just ready for anything. I had to walk around my apartment and turn off all the fans because our apartment gets like very swamp ass in the summertime.
Oh, yeah, because a lot of places like mine, too, just in the Pacific Northwest, don't bother with AC because you only need it like 3 months out of the year, but those 3 months are killer.
They're absolute hell. But I am going down to Portland to visit you next weekend.
Yeah, we're so excited. And you're also like, you're going to be doing something else very exciting down here too.
Yes, I'm going to be getting 2 new tattoos.
So fun.
Yeah, and one of them is kind of anything bones themed.
Oh, yeah. Are you going to wait to reveal it later? Or are you going to tell them now?
Maybe I'll do a reveal later. Keep them hanging.
Yeah. Just waiting for it. Wanting more.
We'll leave it as a cliffhanger here, but I'll say that it's a...
In olden days, a glimpse of femur was only for morbid dreamers, but you're not alone. Bring anything bones. Two goofy gals with deathly interest go on a skeleton inquest in your headphones. Anything goes.
Hello and welcome to Anything Bones. I'm Sophie, 800 years old Schwartz.
And I'm Katelyn, 80s Night Hart. And this is the podcast where we talk about bones and bone-related topics. And if you're new here somehow, welcome. And we talk about, like true crime, archaeology, historical mysteries, dead people. It's pretty open.
Sometimes medical oddities, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty open. So there's a little something for everybody in there.
If it's bones, it's our territory.
And we tend to stick to some archetypes where you tend to go for more archaeological. Why am I having trouble with that word? Archaeological. And
I always have trouble with the word archaeological.
and I tend to steer more towards the crime, which is by the sounds of your 800-year-old situation, I think we're going to fall into those categories today as well.
I mean, who knows? I could be talking about a vampire.
I don't know, actually. You could be. We have.
Oh, God, we have.
We've delved into the unknown that only Twilight has tried to get to. I'm sorry. I don't know what I'm talking about.
I think it might be time to get into the bones and bone-related topics.
Yeah, hit me with it. You should go first.
All right, I'm going first. So, just a little pre-pro to my topic. I've been watching a lot of horror movies lately.
Nice.
I've been getting into them for the longest time in my life. I feel like I was very scared by the trailers of horror movies.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, nope, not for me. And recently, my lovely partner, Joe, has been like, you're way braver than you think you are. You can watch horror movies. You talk about dead people constantly. So what's there to go for? And so we've been watching like The Evil Dead, which is
so
like a great,
weird and funny,
amazing 10 out of 10 on those first, on Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness. Less fond of the modern ones because they are grosser. But earlier today when I was looking for a topic, I stumbled upon something where, The Evil Dead or Scream, Hereditary. These are all things that are fake.
Right.
But you and I, we deal in the real death.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so I will send you a picture of what my topic is.
Oh my God.
So I found this mummy that really sent a chill down my spine.
Woof. Yeah, that's really creepy. It's a mummy that is all like tied up and in the fetal position and looks like they're caught in a net or something. It's really creepy.
They've got their hands also tied over their face.
Yeah.
So seeing this image immediately caught my attention.
Of course.
And this is actually a relatively new find. This is a mummy found in Peru in 2021.
Oh, yeah, that's very recent.
So I'll get a little bit into more of it in a second. I'll do my sources real quick.
Oh, sure.
So we've got one from the World Monument Foundation, one from New York Post, one from amnh.org, and one from the Smithsonian. So, like I was saying, this mummy was found in 2021, and it is bound in the fetal position with ropes and has its hands covering its face, and it was found underground in a tomb in Peru. And it is estimated that this mummy could be between 800 and 1200 years old.
God damn. I wonder if it scared the people that found it, or if they're doing okay.
I mean, if you're an archaeologist digging around in Peru, I think you gotta be prepared for some unexpected things, because these guys were actually pretty, one of the researchers, there's a couple of researchers leading this dig from the National University of San Marcos, and they're the ones who found these remains at this archaeological site called Cajamarquilla. and it's about 25 kilometers from Lima, Peru.
Huh, okay.
And they were pretty surprised to find these remains. One of the researchers said, quote, "The whole team was really happy because we didn't think this was going to happen."
They're like, we're just gonna, find some plates, some combs, and then they find a whole ass skeleton in a real creepy, tied up way. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't think I've ever seen a mummy like that before.
It's definitely new, but as you'll remember, mummification is nothing new for the people of the area of Peru.
Of course.
So this tomb and this town are hopefully going to help teach researchers a lot more about the communities that lived in the coastline area of Peru before the Inca Empire, which was around the 1400s. And these remains also shed some interesting light on relations between different communities in the area of the time, because this archaeological site is thought to be a big trading hub for the people of the area. So there are a lot of people from a lot of different communities coming through this area.
So lots of different types of artifacts.
Exactly. And lots of different types of burial techniques, because what I'll reveal to you now is there's nothing creepy about this burial technique.
Oh, cool. So someone wasn't buried alive, tied up like that? Because that's what it looked like to me.
That's what it looks like, but it's actually a very respectful burial.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
The Western lens of ignorance
turns
its head again.
Open my eyes, please, Bone Queen.
Hey, I fell for it too. And that's how a lot of the articles are looking at it too, are being this shocking burial. Yeah. Where it's actually they think that this was probably, I could not find a lot of information about other mummies being found this way, but quick, refresher on mummification in this area, like we were just talking about. They've been mummifying people over there for more than 7,000 years.
Okay, yeah.
So they
know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing, and they might have a couple techniques we haven't heard of yet.
Yeah, I bet.
In the 7,000 years? Yeah, probably.
Just when you think you've heard it all, you haven't.
Just when you think you heard it all. Yeah. Well, they were doing, as I'm sure you remember, they were doing this way before the Egyptians. Mm-hmm. And their burial techniques, as it comes to mummification, I always find it so interesting how all around the world we can find these little connections between different cultures and different, burial techniques, because kind of the most common burial technique for the Peruvian mummies was that usually the mummies would be covered in either a black or red clay. We covered this. And then a mask would be made to be put over their face. And they were laid to rest that way. Yeah. And then they'd have a person sculpt kind of the person's face into this mask, which reminds me a lot of the sculptings on the front of an Egyptian sarcophagus.
Yeah, definitely.
And, much like the Egyptians, in these tombs, there would be a lot of grave goods. You would bring food, you would bring pottery, combs.
Lots of combs.
Lots of combs. We love a good comb.
Everybody had to comb their hair. They did. They didn't have to, but I hope they tried.
If that was the type of hair they had.
True, yeah. I don't know.
Also, these mummies would be wrapped in, fabric. Also, again, similar to Egyptian mummies. Mm-hmm. Little trinkets and objects of significance would be wrapped within either the clay or the fabric. Again, these cultures just mirroring each other from completely different parts of the world. I think that's so fascinating.
For sure, but they figured out what worked to take care of their dead. So that's cool.
Exactly, yeah. So back to our specific mummy. There's more ongoing research to be done about this mummy, seeing as it was found 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's a big deal finding a mummy.
It is a big deal finding a mummy. And this mummy is thought to be a young man between the ages of like 25 and 30. So, I mean, that's about our age. So that's pretty sad.
That does suck. I guess that was probably close to the life expectancy, though, of the time.
Probably.
I don't know. I don't know if it was different in Peru, but I think it was people generally died in their like 30s and 40s back then, I think.
I think so, yeah. You know, and this is the pre-colonial era. So this is before Spaniards come up with all their terrible diseases and wreck everybody's shop forever.
Yeah, sure.
But his tomb is actually kind of in the middle of the town square of this archaeological site. So he's thought to probably be a pretty important guy.
I would think so.
If he's buried in the middle of town? Probably.
Yeah, hell yeah.
It's like, who's this guy? Oh, that's Trader Johnny. He was the best guy around. What about all the people he murdered? What more? No. You've seen that sound, right?
No, I don't think so.
The TikTok sound that's like, he was the best guy around. What about all the people he murdered? What more?
Oh my God, no, I have not heard that. I'm missing out.
Okay, I'll go into that later. We have no time for this soundbite.
Another time.
Because it's about a mobster.
Oh
anyway.
My God, yeah, okay.
So this town that he lived or, you know, worked in and had business in and, you know, kind of came through from time to time was probably first built by the Hayuri people around like 400 AD. So, like, this site was used by those people, and then after they kind of left and moved on, it was used by a different group of people. So it's been kind of a site where people have lived for thousands of years. Unfortunately, the thing about this site is that it, for a long time, was not recognized as an archaeological site and was kind of left to disrepair. And due to political unrest in the 80s and 90s, people were kind of leaving bigger cities like Lima and building houses kind of more out in the boonies, which would be near this archaeological site. And unfortunately, it's been used in the past as a dumping site, as a grazing ground and bathroom for livestock.
Yeesh.
So archaeologists and the World Monument Fund are working to restore this archaeological site and learn more about it, because it's it's an extremely important site, but we actually don't know too much about it. What I've sent you is some graffiti that was on this archaeological site. Yeah, someone's spray painting
like
the
a lot of
rocks.
people. It's got layers. Like why? It just doesn't make sense.
I don't know. You know, part of me is like, kids will be kids, and the other part of me is like, you know, if you're running from political unrest, you know, you might have some opinions you want to express.
Yeah,
but maybe
can't you do it on a new building?
Yeah, I would prefer that. But, you know, I'm an ignorant white lady from wherever. Kind of concluding my topic because it's a little shorter because, you know, this is ongoing research with this mummy and with this archaeological site, which I hope we can check in with again. But just what I think it really illustrates is that even though archaeology as a study is very familiar with Peruvian mummies, we're still finding new techniques. We're still finding new tomb styles. So, like, the canon of mummification techniques continues to expand.
Yeah, huh.
And it's fucking fascinating. And, you know, the lesson that we always teach ourselves is, you know, sometimes those first gut judgments need to be checked. You know,
they might not be correct.
They might not be correct. What looks like a horror movie setup to us, you know, it could be a respectful burial in the eyes of someone else. You know, you always got to be thinking with bones in mind.
One step ahead of the bone.
One step ahead of, you know, judgment in the Western lens of what is respectful. But, you know, it just makes me excited to see new interesting mummification techniques still being discovered.
Yeah. And I wonder if they'll learn anything about like his station in life, if this was something that was like common or if it was something reserved for like noble people or royalty or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that you are probably right on the money, because a lot of what I read about like mummification in this time is that like in the Incan Empire, it was usually the leaders of communities that would be mummified the most meticulously. Mm-hmm. And you know, you listener cannot see the picture, but the ropes that are binding this mummy are made in almost like a net or baskety kind of way. So it's like, you know, it took a lot of time. It took a lot of effort to do this burial. So, you know, he's got to be someone important in the community. And I'm looking forward to following up on this and seeing what else they can learn about this person, because they had a lot of grave goods as well. There were a lot of like mollusk shells in there. So they think that people came back to visit him for years after he died.
Huh. It was like maybe a kind of religious site.
Yeah. Or, you know, kind of a pillar in the community. You know, because one of the things I read about Peruvian like burial culture like in this time was that like, and we've talked about this before, but mostly I think in like Eastern Asian countries, that they kept the mummies in their homes for a time. And would see them in a similar way to other cultures we talked about as having something of an ongoing life in that respect, and bringing them food and bringing them the things that they need that they would have needed in their living life for their afterlife.
Sure. Yeah. Well, set your Google alerts and
yeah, honestly,
on just ancient Egypt in general. God. On ancient Peru in general and ancient Egypt, there's always stuff going on. They're always finding new stuff.
Ugh, they pulled like a perfectly intact, like black marble stele, like I think out of the Nile, one of those like big, like, you know, tablets with all the like.
Oh, a tablet.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds like Brendan Fraser's about to show up.
Oh, bitch, let me show you a picture.
Okay. Shit.
Just real quick. It's Big Brendan energy. BBE, as they call it.
Yeah, as the kids call it.
Here, I'm going to send it to you on Instagram.
Wow. Oh, shit, that's crazy. The caption, "This thing comes with ghosts."
I mean, this to me harkens much back to like that woman with the golden eye that they found, where it's just like, why would you fuck with that?
Why would you take this out of its place?
Why would you you found it buried deep in the water and we're just gonna pull it up? Cool, awesome, great.
That's a curse waiting to happen.
Yeah, and you just know they're gonna ship it off to the British Museum or some shit like that.
All right, everybody. Listen to an ad and think about how the British Museum needs to give back all of its shit.
I'm coming for you, British Museum.
Hey, podcast lovers. My name is Haley, and I run the Don't Identify podcast. I have been passionate about helping the unidentified get their names back ever since I found out I lived within miles of where Sherry Ann Jarvis, formerly known as the Walker County Jane Doe, was found. In my podcast, I tell the stories and provide information about unidentified people in hopes of reaching their loved ones and getting their names back. So come join me and help me advocate for these people. You never know, you could recognize someone's story.
Hello, and welcome back to Anything Bones, the podcast where we talk about bones and bone-related topics. We've just completed a look at an 800-year-old Peruvian mummy. And now, for something completely different.
Katelyn, would you care to take us away?
Do you like my radio voice?
Yes, I want you to use it more.
My NPR voice.
Yeah, I would be lulled to sleep, or I would buy anything from this woman.
Yeah. So my story is going to take place in 1985 in Garden Grove, Orange County. So in California.
So definitely switching regions.
Switching gears and going into the true crime arena. I also want to put a trigger warning on this one for sexual assault and attempted suicide. So yeah, if you don't want to hear about that, totally understand. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time. So have you heard the name Cinnamon Brown?
I have.
Yeah? Do you know the story at all?
I might.
You'll
but
see. Yeah,
I
you'll
have
see
not
it.
heard it in a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the case of Cinnamon Brown. I don't want to give anything else away. Anyway, so I used a few sources for this. All That's Interesting, which is a great resource lately. The LA Times and a video from the Oprah show.
Oh.
Because this takes place in 1985, and like there's trials and stuff that happen in the 90s. So Oprah interviews a key player. So I'll kind of talk about that later.
Oh, wow.
And then I listened to an episode of my fave Morbid podcast, dated from January 22nd, 2021. So from the outside, the Brown family seems to be like totally normal. The patriarch, David Brown, is in his mid-30s, and he runs like a computer data recovery business, and he like strikes it rich, I guess, and is doing really well. He has a 23-year-old wife named Linda, and then they have an infant daughter named Crystal. Some sources say she was his fifth wife. I'm not sure if that's true or not.
Oh, wow.
So that was part of the family. And then Cinnamon Brown also lived in this house in Garden Grove. She was 14 years old, and she was David's daughter from a previous marriage. Also living in the house was Linda's younger sister, Patty Bailey, who was 17 and had been living with them for about 6 years. They seem to be normal from the outside, but obviously you can never judge a book by its cover. And behind closed doors, over the course of about 2 years, David Brown turned his daughter Cinnamon and the sister Patty against his wife Linda, and convinced them that Linda, the wife and the mother of the baby Crystal, and Patty's sister. There's a lot of characters in this story, but Patty is Linda's sister who lives with them, and Cinnamon is Linda's stepdaughter. So over the course of...
I'm starting to remember now.
Yeah, it's complicated. But over the course of 2 years, David Brown, the dad, works to turn them against Linda, his wife, and says that she and her brother have like mafia ties, and they're going to kill him and take over his business, or they're going to, have a big ransom just to get a bunch of his money in order to, save him from an untimely death. He needed them to kill his wife for him because, of course, he himself did not have the stomach for it, but he was
God. Talk about the worst kind of person.
Yeah, doesn't have the stomach for murder, but he will convince his 14-year-old daughter and 17-year-old sister-in-law to kill his wife.
God, people are so fucked up.
Yeah, this is insane.
Well, just this is like another branch or another like species of the family annihilator type guy. And like, why do they always go for the mob? Like, I don't know if you've seen Bailey Sarian's recent video about like this woman who basically catfished a guy online into believing that she was like being held captive by the mob,
and got a bunch of money.
And like,
oh God,
no, he came and like killed her husband.
Whoa, that's
for her. Yeah,
damn,
because she manipulated him into it. Yeah, it's like these people are so dangerous and insidious.
Oh yeah. So he told Cinnamon over and over and over, if you loved me, you would do this for me. And he was like, oh, you're so young. You're only 14. So there's no way you're going to go to jail for it. You would just like go to a psychologist or psychiatrist, talk it out and then go home. And she, being 14 and under the influence of her manipulative father, believed him.
Yeah, because if your father tells you that.
Yeah. And so then the 17-year-old sister-in-law, Patty, turns out she actually had something to gain from her sister's death. She had a really bad childhood, which was why she was living with David and Linda in the first place. There was possible accusations of sexual abuse by her own brother, which is disgusting.
That's horrible.
So she moved in with her sister's husband at the time, and then they had this new baby. But unfortunately, instead, he began grooming her. And she fell in love with him because of the grooming.
Oh, this family needs therapy.
Yes. So bad. So bad. So, like I said, this takes place over the course of 2 years, and they're planning this, they're figuring it out. And in the background, David is taking out, you guessed it. Let me hear it. What do you think it is that he's taking out?
Life insurance policies.
You got it.
I've never been so unhappy to be right.
Yeah, 2 policies on his 23-year-old wife within about 2 months of her death that would have amounted to a little over $800,000.
How old is he again?
He's in his mid-30s.
God.
30.
Ew.
Some sources, in this time, he's 33, between 33 and 36, I think, is what some of the sources kind of say.
But 23 is still so young. If I think of myself at 23, I wasn't ready to be, the wife of a household like that.
No. This guy was just a piece of work and just, taking down everybody that he came into contact with. So in the middle of the night on March 19th, 1985, David wakes up Cinnamon and Patty and says that it has to be tonight. Tonight's the night. So some sources say he gives her the gun. Some sources say the gun was already in the house. Some sources say that Patty helped load the gun. It's kind of unclear. But ultimately what happened was that she took the gun and shot her stepmother twice, killing her.
God.
Yeah. And then, this is the big trigger warning for suicide, he had told her she was originally supposed to commit the murder and then try to shoot herself to make it look like a murder-suicide. But she didn't want to do that, so he gave her a cocktail of pills that she should take after the murder. He instructed her to go outside to the doghouse to do it with a suicide note.
I remember the doghouse.
Yeah. This is a really brutal case. It's really it's just so sad. And then the Oprah video that I mentioned was one of my sources. She interviewed Cinnamon, and it's very it's haunting. It's really scary. I'm going to link it in the show notes, obviously, but I highly recommend it's something you see for yourself, because it's just what the, this is just so traumatic, and how would you ever trust anybody again? And it's just beyond.
Your father is the person who's supposed to teach you, right and wrong, and protect you and steer you in the right direction. This man is the most horrible person. Every time I think that you've brought me the most horrible person,
we can go lower, it turns out, which is unfortunate.
God, what a fucking piece of shit coward.
Oh, and just so you know, he told them all this, said, tonight's the night, left the house and headed to a convenience store where he went in and out a couple of times, chatted with the clerk to make sure that his alibi was super solid. And he would tell responding officers later that he had left because he was sick of the arguing between his daughter and his wife.
Wowie, wow. Sir, as a bones expert, it looks like you might not have a spine.
Oh, yeah, I'd say you are 100% correct. So David comes home, I'm just, pretending to be distraught. He and Patty call the police, and Morbid had a bit about them, calling the police and telling them, yeah, we think she's dead up there. We don't know where Cinnamon is, and we think Linda's dead up there, but we haven't gone up to check, which was pretty suspicious. Obviously would be very suspicious, if nobody went up there to, be sure. I don't know.
Oh, I think a member of our family is dead in the other room, but nobody's going to check.
Nobody knows what's going... Oh, and Cinnamon's not around, but yeah, so...
Oh, but who cares?
So detectives come, obviously, because they find Linda's body in the bedroom. She's been shot twice, once in the chest and once in the head. And detectives are like walking around. One report said that they were like corralling some of the dogs that were like living in this house. And they find Cinnamon in one of the dog houses. And she has had a prescription drug overdose. And this is pretty graphic, but if she had not have thrown up after she took all the pills, she probably would have died.
God.
And obviously she had to have been on her side to have not like suffocated. So
she's a teen. She's a baby.
She's 14 years old.
She's 14 years old.
So the apparent motive, which David is lovingly setting up, is that Linda was murdered because Cinnamon, couldn't stand her anymore. Unfortunately, Cinnamon, under the direction of her dad, confesses to the murder because he told her that she would just get off with a slap on the wrist or like just have to go to therapy and then come home and like resume their normal life, better life, because Linda was out to get him.
God.
Yeah. In 1986, Cinnamon Brown was sentenced to 27 years to life in prison.
Was she charged as an adult?
I'm not sure about that. Eventually she gets moved to what's called the like Youth's Authority and like finishes out her sentence there. I think she was treated as a child, is what I gather. I could be wrong though. Wasn't totally clear to me. Here's what is clear. David collected on those life insurance policies, got himself a new home, some cars. And then his sister-in-law, Patty, they secretly married in 1986. So the same year that Cinnamon was sentenced.
These people are terrible.
And they also had a daughter who if people asked who the father was, they wouldn't say that it was David, but it's like they were living together. So I don't know.
Wow. And they really were like to lock Cinnamon up to rot.
Yeah, pretty much. Honestly, some of my sources indicate that he probably planned for her to die that night, and then it would just be a murder-suicide, but she survived, and so...
Well, that would have been easier for him, wouldn't it?
Probably would have, yeah. And so, okay, she definitely was tried as a child, because my next line is about her being incarcerated in the California Youth Authority. So yes, it was right there.
I hate this man so much.
Yeah, he is a bad guy.
To put it quite lightly.
To put it lightly, yeah, he's real bad. So over the 2 to 3 years while she was in jail, basically, in the youth authority, she was becoming more and more disillusioned with her father, David. He didn't come to visit her very often, and he did keep advising her to, say that she didn't remember the night of the murder, or that she did it when parole came up. So she never got considered for parole, because she kind of kept telling them nope, I did it, or I don't remember doing it, blah, blah, blah.
Great. Awesome. And just keep throwing her under that bus.
And it sounds like she heard from other family members about the life insurance policies, and then she learned that Patty and her father were married. And so at that point, she is fully pissed, fully disillusioned. Her dad is she just doesn't know what to think, but she does decide that she is going to cooperate with the police now.
Hell yeah. Get him, Cinnamon.
And guess what? In true badass form, she, in August 1988, so she was only in jail for a couple years, which still sucks because she was a child.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that she would have done this if not for the direction of her dumbass father, who was very abusive. And in the Morbid podcast, they talked about how Cinnamon had to live in a trailer on the property because of this apparent friction.
Jeez. God, what did this child do to this man?
He's just evil. So in 1988, Cinnamon puts on a wire from the district attorney's office when her dad comes to visit her and records him talking about how she should, it was something like, she asked him, why can't we just tell the truth? And he was like, well, you can tell some of the truth, but you can't tell all of the truth, because then everybody's going to go to jail. She's like, I'm already there, motherfucker. Like,
bitch, I am in jail. I don't give a shit about you. God.
He also,
what a horrible person.
in the same visit, he acknowledged that he had mixed the like drug cocktail for her to take after she murdered Linda. And he was afraid that he, you know, wouldn't make it in prison. But this source here, if this happened, this is crazy, said that he, quote, promised her he would persuade Patty to confess to the murder so she could take Cinnamon's place.
Wow.
So if that's the case, that's really hideous, because I don't put it past him. I would believe that happening.
Oh, no, absolutely. None of these young women mean anything to him.
No, he's just
like,
a complete
everyone
narcissist.
is a pawn. Everyone's an object. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. This guy
God.
has no, like, spine and no morals.
No spine, no morals. God, what a piece of shit.
So David and Patty get arrested after this, you know, incident with the wiretap.
Oh, yeah.
Or not wiretap, but, like, you know what I mean? Like, she recorded him saying, confessing, basically.
Stealth operation.
Cinnamon fights back, finally.
Yes.
So he denies everything at first, but then when he hears about the recordings, he's like, well, okay, like some of this is true, but, you know, it still wasn't my fault, blah, blah, blah. Patty, to her credit, cooperates with prosecution and ends up testifying against David at some point. Still, I don't know how to feel about Patty because she lived with him since she was 11. That's when he came into her life. So I feel like you can't
put too much on her because it's like, God, having that person as a father, like...
Patty ends up being his wife, though. First brother-in-law, then husband.
First brother-in-law, then husband.
Yeah, disgusting.
This is so complicated. That's not good either.
No, Cinnamon's his daughter. Patty's his sister-in-law, and then
sister-in-law wife.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Is that what it is?
Yep.
Sister-in-law wife.
Yep.
All right.
So,
okay, guy.
David Brown has one more trick up his sleeve, if you can believe it.
God.
He speaks to another inmate, a cellmate or, you know, somebody there who's about to be released. His name is Richard Steinhardt, and he offers him $500,000 to kill Patty as well as 2 members of the district attorney's office.
Robert! Oh no, Robert! Oh no!
So this guy ends up again wearing a wire, calling David and telling him that he did commit the murders and getting him on tape being like, you got them both? Like, yeah, that's great, man. Like, yeah, so it was...
You kill everyone I told you to kill? Mm-hmm.
It was pretty damning. So he was... his trial was in 1990. Cinnamon and Patty testified that he was the one that, like, was the mastermind behind this murder. He was luckily sentenced to life without the possibility of parole and died in prison in 2014.
Hell yeah, rotten hell, you
goodbye.
Piece of shit.
Patty was also sentenced in the juvenile court system, which I think is appropriate in this case. They say that she was sentenced to a reformatory, so I don't know what that means exactly in today's language, but hopefully it was like an institution where she could get some help.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is whatever her level of involvement and like someone when you're like, you've known someone since you're 11 and they go from being your brother-in-law to your husband.
It's sick.
That's a person who has insane influence
and who's
over
been
you.
grooming you since you were 11. It just, it's really sick.
Whatever her culpability in the crime is doesn't matter. She needs
help, exactly. Some people, like the assistant district attorney, Jeffrey Robinson, who was the prosecutor in David Brown's case, are in full belief that Cinnamon is a hero because she came forward after all those years and like turned her dad in. Because he obviously had a lot of influence over her, so it was very like brave of her to defy him.
Hell yeah.
So she, in her 7 years sentence, which she got a lesser sentence after all this stuff came out about her dad, she got a high school diploma and an associate's of arts degree, and she was paroled in 92. There was a parole board member who like dissented to her being released, saying like that she, quote, and this is just to say like a couple of different opinions. Like I think she's a victim in all this myself, but this guy on the parole board said she, quote, has made great progress in her program. Her reasons for the well-planned, cold-blooded killing of her victims are not to be believed. She was able to conceal the truth and show no emotion or remorse for several years before she saw the light and pointed out her father as the person behind the crime. She has not explored all the reasons she was able to twice shoot her victim. And I honestly think that's a piece of shit. Like, I think this guy doesn't have a lot of empathy or like any kind of trauma informed training. So yeah, I guess some people might see that side of her, but I choose to think that she is a victim in all of this.
Yeah, that just sounds like someone who has never been in an abusive relationship.
Yeah. And she also, I mean, she almost overdosed on a lot of medication that almost killed her. Like, she could have some brain damage. Like, we just don't know. But anyway, so there have been several books about this case. Anne Rule wrote a book about this, and she was on the Oprah show when Cinnamon was interviewed from jail and was kind of putting words in her mouth. It was a little bit weird. I don't know how I feel about Anne Rule.
I was gonna say, I have mixed feelings about Anne Rule.
Yeah, anyway, another time. But yeah, so, you know, we love to talk about these challenging cases. I think I've already kind of said it, but to sum up, I think that Cinnamon, while maybe not as much of a victim as Linda Brown, ultimately she was a victim in all of this. Yeah, and David Brown got what he deserved by dying in jail.
Agreed on that last point, forever until the end of time. You did a great job of choosing another story that really makes you think. I don't know, it makes me so thoroughly upset for this family.
Yeah.
Because they lost Linda, and then this father utterly, he destroyed the lives of his, sister-in-law wife.
And his children. There was a baby with Linda, and then he had another baby with Patty. So there are a lot of children in all of this, like, amidst all the chaos. Yeah, he left quite a...
Yeah, wow, he really didn't care about anyone, did he?
No, not at all. He was definitely just thinking about numero uno over there.
I feel like Cinnamon's involvement can be seen as complicated, but to me it feels fairly straightforward of this extended abuse by her father.
Yeah.
But, she did her time.
She did, yeah. She served 7 years for this.
So I don't know what people want from her.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's the end of my story. We've gone all the way from ancient Peru to Orange County in the 80s. So we really, we blasted through this episode into space and time, if you will.
Yeah, but, I think if I was to try to pick a theme from this, I think things are not always what they seem.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, Cinnamon is no cold-blooded killer, and, this is no horror movie mummy. It's a respectful burial.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening, y'all. We hope you have a good month of June and beyond. Happy Juneteenth. That's coming up.
Yeah.
Happy Father's Day. Oh my God.
Happy Father's Day.
Recording this story on Father's Day. The irony is not lost on me.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was like, oh, happy Father's Day.
Chris said the same thing.
To the worst dad.
Yeah, just truly the worst. But yeah, there's probably only one thing left to say. Bon voyage.
Oh, I love you, Caitlin.
I love you too. I'll squeeze you in a week.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Anything Bones. Follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Anything Bones Podcast, or email us at anythingbonespodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you to Nick Kruger for our spooky music and Stephen Vetteroff
At Chubby Scrubby on Twitter.
for our jazzy vocals, and thank you to Camilla Franklin
At Camilla Strader on Instagram.
for our beautiful bony artwork. Please rate, review, and subscribe.
Phew. Sorry.
Bless. That was cute.
Keep it.